right. Let us discuss Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
If this is the first time, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I guess we can still do general overall thoughts, character moments, and then themes that stood out.
Yes.
We'll do those 3.
In general, I mean, I've always loved that movie.
It ages very well.
It ages very well. It's just a good action movie. Like, it's not even like, it doesn't necessarily feel like a superhero movie. It just feels like a good classic action film, and I've always loved those. My father raised me well.
Yeah, it definitely gives off like Jason Bourne vibes. You know, with the spy thriller espionage kind of feel. Yeah, man, oh man, does Marvel miss that one?
What do you mean? Does Marvel miss it?
So I think back to like around that time period, we were getting a plethora of different movies. People look to Phase 3, but I would even say some of Phase 2 was actually really great. Phase 2 leading into Phase 3, because I think around Phase 2 and 3, we had the widest range of Marvel movies, because we were getting the spy thrillers, we were getting the Black Panthers, which had its own specific, identity, and you still had like the Iron Mans, which had the Robert Downey Jr.'s charm. But then you were getting Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, it's true.
That was completely new, different feel. And you were getting Doctor Strange. Again, you brought in that mystic, almost like, to an extent, like the cosmic stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Thor comes in with Ragnarok, which was another hit. That, I think, was the best time to be a Marvel fan.
Yeah.
Because people will look to the run of just the Russo brothers films, and that's true. But it was that and then some. Yeah,
there was a lot going on. There was something for everyone.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right. So, yeah, I really appreciate that one. I know. I don't want to make it seem like we're thinking like Marvel's peaked and they've jumped the shark, but...
No, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited for... I think Secret Invasion will give us a little bit of that back. But yeah, I loved it. Loved it. Always the combat scenes in this movie are just unmatched.
Yeah.
I mean, they can only be rivaled by the combat scenes in other Russo brothers films. Like that's really it.
They just make the best fight scenes. I don't think it's not even close. I picked up on a couple of things after this rewatch. You can tell that Winter Soldier is the Russo brothers' best. Let me say this. It's their favorite film because, one, they make cameos in it, which I thought that was kind of funny. And two, you saw a number of callbacks of the Winter Soldier in Endgame, which is their last Marvel film.
Yeah, a lot of the callbacks were from this film. That's true.
You get the elevator scene, which is just iconic. If you're a Marvel fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. But also when Nick Fury goes to visit Steve after S.H.I.E.L.D's been compromised and he learns about things that are going on, the music that's playing in the background is the music that Steve and Peggy were dancing to at Endgame. Yeah, so you could tell.
But isn't that a callback to... Isn't that music a callback to the first Captain America?
I can't remember. It might have been the same music that was playing when he first woke up. I'm assuming
or something. I feel like that music has been like a recurring thing for him.
Thing. I want to go back and listen to it to see if it's the same song. But I heard it and I said, "Oh yeah, it's the same thing." Yeah. A number of other ones that I probably can't think of right now, but you can tell they're like, yeah, the Russos had fun with this one. They were in their bag with this one. They were in their bag. I
mean, even the On Your Left that comes up in Endgame, that comes from this movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Overall, it's still up there in the top ranking Marvel
for sure.
films.
Yeah. I put this one above Civil War pretty much every time. I love them both, but I think I like this one better as a standalone project.
Really?
Yes. I think so.
As a standalone.
As a standalone.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Because I feel like this movie can exist on its own. You actually don't need that. You could really like I'm pretty sure that my dad went and saw this because I was like or I don't know if he saw it in theaters, but like I remember talking to my dad about it and being like, I know that you'll like this movie because it's just a really good action movie, and like you don't really need that much context to watch it. Like you can just go in and see it and you'll pretty much be fine.
It's interesting because you can make an argument that the Marvel movies that feel very insular, that feel very, what's the word I'm sort of looking for?
Self-contained.
Yeah. The Marvel movies that are the most self-contained, you could make the argument that they seem to consistently be ranked amongst fans as the best ones. Because Winter Soldier, obviously up there, even Iron Man is still one of the more iconic ones. And that was before we knew where all of this was really going to go. Black Panther is obviously going to be put up there in terms of one of the better Marvel films because you kind of create your own world.
Yeah.
Ragnarok is kind of the same way. Like, yeah, you're in space, but it's really just about like a family drama, you know. Siblings.
And Guardians of the Galaxy too.
And Guardians of the Galaxy is another one. Yeah.
I mean, but then you have like Infinity War, which is like the least self-contained movie of all.
Yeah. Well, that one. I think that's why people are starting to argue that it might be better than The Dark Knight because of what they were able to accomplish, and it still didn't feel like they scaled too much.
No, it was everything, but it's because they just took so much time to get there.
Yeah.
It was just like payoff for everything.
Yeah, that's all that it was.
Yeah.
You know, that's true. Man, that's interesting because I think after rewatching Civil War, I think the personal, more emotional pulls landed better in Civil War for me.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
I think Civil War, I like what it says better. Like it has like there's more to talk about when you watch Civil War because it's like the themes are a lot more complex than in Winter Soldier. The government oversight thing comes into play in Winter Soldier, but it's not really like a debate. It's like this government oversight is bad. Like there's no conversation
like
to be had.
There's no nuance really.
Yeah, the in Civil War where it's like there's a bit more tension there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I definitely think that the government oversight conversation in this movie, it definitely lays the groundwork for how Cap looks at it in Civil War, for sure.
It opens the door not just for Cap, but it helps you understand the political dynamics that are happening at play. Because even Natasha, she sort of alludes to in that last line when she has that hearing of what happens in Civil War. Like, yes, we do play a role in making the world vulnerable, but we are still the best to defend it. That right there really solidifies everything that happens in Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it during this movie. I was like, the thing is, like, this film, I feel like solidifies for Steve that he can trust his own judgment better than anybody else's because he's like, he's right? Like from the jump, he's suspicious about what's going on with the ships and like he's a little unsure. He goes to talk to Peggy about it, but then he trusts his gut and he ends up being correct. And I think that helps him in Civil War to be a bit more sure of himself and sure of his stance because I think he's like, no, I know that I can trust myself more than I can trust any of these agencies or any of this oversight because when S.H.I.E.L.D. was, you know, being infiltrated, my gut was still correct. Like I still knew who was right. And then I think on the flip side of that, Iron Man, his movies have been him learning not to trust himself so much.
Oh, that's so interesting.
It's like it's like two different, you know?
Yeah, which is why Iron Man signs with the Accords. He's like, I don't trust myself with my weapons, even with my intelligence.
His whole thing is he started off too confident in himself.
Yeah.
And then he had to be humbled over the course of his films to the point where he realizes I'm not infallible and sometimes I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And Caps is more like he's realizing like, no, more than anybody else, I need to trust my own gut because he's kind of alone in his whole thing is like he's sort of alone because he was separated from everything he knew.
Well, you brought up something. We're jumping right into it. I think you bring Cap being alone. The more I watch these Marvel movies, the more I rewatch these Marvel movies, the more I learn to love and appreciate Sam's character. 100%. And there's a flashback scene where Bucky tells Steve, "You don't have to do this by yourself." And you see that Steve comes to that realization that Bucky's right by the way he allows Sam to come into his circle, right? Because Natasha's there, but they still, they don't really trust each other until like halfway through the movie.
They're suspicious.
Right.
Yeah.
But Steve trusts Sam right away. And it's because Sam says, it's your bed, isn't it? It's like immediately Steve realizes, oh, this guy gets me. Right. And that's why I really love to appreciate Sam, because like he doesn't have super strength like Bucky or Steve or Spider-Man. He doesn't have like the tech genius as like Shuri or Tony. But I think Sam's like secret weapon is just like his empathy level, his ability to look at a person and say like, I can see what you need. Right. And there are a lot of dynamics that really go into that, because his ability to realize I don't have to go in and punch first, not because I don't have the physical capabilities of doing so. That may be a factor, but I think he realizes sometimes empathy is a stronger weapon than muscle, right? Because you see it in Falcon Winter Soldier. He tries to talk with Carly down, and you could make an argument he was going to succeed before Walker comes in there, guns a-blazing.
It was definitely looking like that could have worked.
Right. Yeah. Same thing when he talks with Bucky. Bucky's not taking his therapy seriously. He only listens to Sam, right? Same thing with Walker on a couple of instances, even with Isaiah Bradley. This is another thing that I appreciate about Sam. People don't want to mention it, but Sam's race does give him not a better qualification than Steve, but a different qualification as Captain America. Because when Sam hears Isaiah Bradley's story, he understands that from that racial component, which is why it's important for different people in different racial demographics to have a Captain America that looks like that, in my opinion, because you're able to have a hero that can directly understand what you're going through. Now, I think that I thought that was important for Sam's character, because it's just a theme that I kept seeing show up. Like, Sam just cares about people, and like that relatable, that down to earth. I put him in the same category of like, he can just become a fan favorite like Spider-Man, because it's just him. He's just being himself. Yeah. I also love that Sam is a Marvin Gaye fan, and he's like, hey man, Cap, if you want to learn everything you need to know about this country, listen to this black man. He's going to tell you everything you need to know. An honest depiction of what America's like. Also, Russo brothers did a really good job at strength scaling Captain America. I don't think I was taking Cap seriously until Winter Soldier. Yeah. Because a lot of the fight scenes are like, oh, this dude's legit. He's legit. And the Russo brothers were creative in finding ways to have Cap use his shield in pretty unique ways that were like, oh, that's pretty impressive for you to just use this thing, you know, like a frisbee, as Ultron kind of called it, but find ways where it's like a deadly weapon. Like, he took down a full-on jet, you know what I mean? Like, that was pretty cool. Him diving out without a parachute, you get a sense of what he can handle, what he can't handle.
Yeah. I mean, this is our first. This is like our first time really getting to see Cap as Cap for real. I feel like, because the first movie is like, you see him, but yeah, it's just an introduction, and it's in the 40s, and it's just different.
Even in the Avengers, I feel like they didn't know what to do with him in the Avengers.
I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in a while.
He had some cool moments, but it wasn't. The Russo brothers took him to the next level. Yeah. I mean, because they were like, we have to lean into the hand-to-hand combat. That's what you do with him. Yeah, you have to. The same way that you do that with Natasha, you have to do the same thing with Steve. I am of the group that doesn't mind that Steve ended up with Peggy, but I would have been curious to see where they went with him and Natasha, because they actually had pretty good chemistry, in my opinion.
I think so, too. I was like, I can't tell if the Russo brothers were like, did you guys not know where you were going with Steve's personal life, or like, was this purpose? Like, I can't tell if they did all of this jumping around on purpose, because there was a lot of like banter between the two of them, but it just also like, it could also just be like, sometimes people are like, we're just really good friends, but like,
oh, they were definitely flirting.
Like, yeah, they were definitely flirting. But like, there's some friendships that are like that. Yeah. So it's like, maybe that's what it is. I can't tell. I don't know.
Because remember back in Age of Ultron when Bruce Banner is like contemplating, should I make the move with Natasha? And Steve's like, trust me, friend, I've seen the flirting up close and basically trying to get him to like shoot your shot, bro. And then when it finally clicks, as Steve is walking away, Bruce is like, "Wait, what do you mean up close?" So there were some flirtatious vibes.
No, for sure.
I think that's probably just another example of Marvel landed the plane really well, but it wasn't like they had it clearly cut out from Cap's first movie that he was going to end right back with Peggy, because they were experimenting with a couple of people.
Yeah, but it's like they could have been experimenting I feel like you kind of have to address the fact that like you've been frozen for 40 years and now you're back, but like you're technically like you're in the body of a fairly young person. like everybody, all the other main people, like, Iron Man has Pepper, so I feel like they were like, we kind of have to do something with him in the meantime until we can get him back with Peggy. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't, maybe, yeah, it's hard to tell, honestly. But I do wish that they had never, and I just feel like I'm sorry. I know it's not technically incest, but the thing with Sharon is really unsettling to me, and I don't like that, because I feel like he should be like Uncle Steve. Like, that's how he should be. I know that like the age thing is like whatever, but like you grew up hearing about him from your aunt.
Yeah.
Like, as a young girl, you were hearing stories about this guy. Like, I just think it's weird. I just don't think that they should have entertained that at all. I just really don't like that they did that. We could have done without it.
You didn't need the two love interests. You could have just stuck it with Natasha, and I'm cool with this because they've got amazing chemistry.
Yeah, they had great chemistry. Way better than her and what's his face had than Sharon and
I don't
Steve
know.
had.
They just didn't have enough screen time.
If it's really good chemistry,
yeah, you're right.
You don't need screen time.
You're right.
It just happens.
Yeah, you're right. I was gonna say something about S.H.I.E.L.D. They had to go. S.H.I.E.L.D. had to go.
Well, I mean, yeah.
No, but like their track record was starting to get pretty spotty. Because you even learned with Ant-Man that they were trying to take the Pym particles and use it for themselves. And that was part of why Hank Pym pieced out and kept it to himself. So it's not like S.H.I.E.L.D. has the greatest track record.
I mean, it's a government agency.
Right.
It's like CIA,
Nick Fury's trying to make this distinction between S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't the same thing as Hydra. Hey, man, I understand the nuance that you have, but in practical terms, from regular people, your outcomes are looking pretty similar.
Yeah.
Like he was going to use those naval fleets proactively, maybe not as dark and violent as Hydra, but he still had similar intentions of trying to wipe out a problem
before it becomes
exactly.
Yeah, it's iffy.
Like
it reminded me of Westworld, the season 3. When they were like in the real world, and then they had like that machine that like predicted people's behaviors or whatever.
Was it Rehoboam?
Yeah,
I think that's what it was called.
It was kind of like the same idea of like, yeah, we can tell what kind of person you're going to be with these algorithms, et cetera, et cetera. But the line between like, are you predicting what a person's going to do because it's algorithm, or is the algorithm causing people to do the things that they do, is very thin.
Yeah, yeah. We talked about this a little bit before we got on air. They did a great job at establishing the political factors in Winter Soldier that will play a role in Civil War, because the tension between heroes and government was starting in this movie with Steve and Natasha. Like, you can see it in multiple instances. Steve has it with Fury and with S.H.I.E.L.D., and Natasha has it with the government when she leaks all that information.
And I know that in Civil War, they say that the reason why they wanted to do the Accords, all that kind of stuff, was because of like what happened in
with Wanda.
Yeah, or in Sokovia.
Yeah, they were mentioned. They even mentioned DC,
right?
New York and DC.
But I feel like you can make a pretty strong case that it actually has more to do with the fact that you guys single-handedly took down one of our most important intelligence agencies, and then you leaked all of our secrets to the world. Like, I feel like it's more likely. that they were like, we got to rein these people in because they're starting to do a little bit too much to wreak havoc on us not personally, but as a government, and less to do with we need to protect lives of people in these like big destructive fights. Because everybody knows that argument never made sense, because everybody knows it's like, okay, in New York, that was going to happen. It was aliens. That destruction was going to come, right? Like, the thing that happened with Wanda, like, even that's not like the greatest example. Like, I mean, the thing was going to blow up. The bomb was going to blow up.
Yeah. People were going to die regardless.
Yes. So like,
that's a good
I
point.
feel like you can make a strong case that it was more to do with the fact that like, you guys are getting a little too powerful. Like, you're a little too, we don't like that we can't control you, not because we think that you're dangerous to the world, but because we think you're dangerous to us.
That's a better point.
Releasing all of that information at the end of the movie, I feel like that's like a very overlooked plot point. That's a bit like imagine that happening in real life.
Yeah.
Like, imagine the CIA or the FBI taking their
like WikiLeaks,
right? Like, taking their classified records and then leaking them to the press for everybody. Like, that's actually a really big thing, and it's interesting because yes, this movie followed the basic the basic Marvel structure of like the big fight at the end does save the world, but it's like that is to stop the immediate threat. But the permanent solution is the transparency. That's the permanent solution that is what they are doing to make sure that what they're doing right now is long lasting.
Yeah.
Because you need the transparency. You need people to have access to the information and know what S.H.I.E.L.D. has done and know what happened to prevent the same mistakes from being repeated again. The fight is just to stop what happened right now.
And I want to talk a little bit about Ahsoka. Because did you see that trailer?
I did see the trailer. I'm very excited.
All right, listen. I understand that people like Mando because it gives them a break from like the Jedi and the Skywalker stuff. But let me tell you, that trailer for Ahsoka felt like this is exactly what I personally felt was missing from Star Wars. Personally, this is not a knock to Mando. It's not a knock to Mando. I'm just saying, I think Ahsoka is exactly what Star Wars needs right now. And you can tell they are taking this story and handling it with care. The writer for the novel that covers Thrawn, he's like on set being like an advisor, a consultant.
Oh, nice.
Right? They brought in the voice actor who spoke for Admiral Thrawn. He's coming back to be the live action person. So they're taking care of this.
Like with Last of Us.
Yeah, it does remind me a little bit about Last of Us. Where like we understand how much fans they ended up loving Rebels. You could argue some loved Rebels more than Clone Wars, and Ahsoka throughout the years has become this huge fan favorite amongst the Star Wars community. You got to handle it with care. And listen, I've been seeing a lot of reports about the viewership dropping with Mando over the past few weeks. And as much as I'm enjoying it, I don't think I'm by myself to say that like something kind of feels different, not bad, because I don't think their formula has changed. The quality, in my opinion, hasn't been bad, but I think people are wanting more. And my theory is that we went from House of the Dragon to The Last of Us to Andor to, Succession, if you're into that. I've been catching up with Attack on Titan, and now we're getting Ahsoka. I think there is a type of storytelling that fans are gravitating to more in some ways, and I don't know if the way Mando tells her story, as good as it is filling that need, in my opinion.
It's boring.
It's not boring. It's not boring. Some of it kind of feels like they don't really know what to do with Grogu anymore also.
I think that they should have not kept it going. I think they should have ended it maybe after
season 2 with Luke.
Yeah. Because here's my thing. Okay. I tried to watch Mandalorian once first, and I was like, absolutely not, because I thought it was boring. The first time I watched it, I thought it was boring.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, I was like, I can't see this dude's face. Like, I don't know who these people. I don't know who these people are. Like, I'm not big into like Star Wars lore. Like, I was like, I don't know what's going on. Then you kind of like gave me a bit more information. I was like, okay, let me try again. And I got interested because I liked Baby Yoda. You remember when I was watching the show, I was solely concerned about Baby Yoda. I was like, this adorable little guy. I just love to see him around. Okay, he's a good time. He's just so cute. I want him protected at all costs. And I think that story arc ended
in season two.
In season two. And now I think that they're trying to come back, and I just don't really know where we're going anymore.
I think in my opinion, it's leading to something bigger, because they call it the Mandalorian because it's not just about Din Djarin. They're bringing in other Mandalorians, and the lore of Mandalore is at the forefront now, because I love what they've been doing with Bo-Katan, personally, with the Darksaber, them wanting to recapture Mandalore. There's a lot there that is interesting. I just think they could have done more in this season, because this is what I'll say that has been the more interesting thing. They are clearly building up with Admiral Thrawn as the next big villain, and I'm stoked about that. And clearly Mando and Grogu and the Mandalorians play a big role in that. The interesting part is they are clearly trying to fill in the gap with this and the sequels and the timeline that takes place in between the two, because they're building up a lot in there. Not to go into any spoilers for people who haven't watched it, and I don't know if eventually you'll go and watch it, but that has also been interesting to see, like, oh, Luke's building his temple. Oh, they're hinting at some cloning. Oh, okay. So we're starting to fill in the gaps, and that kind of feels like what Dave Filoni is actually really good at. He just understands Star Wars really well, and so like he can validate the movies that were semi-controversial, because prequels are loved now, but they were very polarizing when it first came out.
Yeah, all these people are liars. Sorry.
Yeah. I think sometimes now it just kind of feels like the louder voices are us who liked it when we were younger. Now, I don't know if that'll happen with the sequels, because you got social media that will be a constant reminder of how much people were polarized by it, but they are doing a really good job, in my opinion, of validating the events of it.
I saw that Lizzo was on The Mandalorian.
And her and Jack Black, I love that episode.
People were so upset.
Yeah.
I saw somebody that was like, first of all, this was so funny. The tweet was like, George Lucas would be turning in his grave. It's like, he's alive. He's alive.
No way did y'all just say that.
He's alive and well. Number two, he's married to a black woman. It was hard. I was like, are you trying to say that he'd be upset because she's black? Or are you trying to say that she'd be upset because it was like cheesy or something?
Star Wars has always had the cheesiness to it.
Thank you. Star Wars fans make me really upset because it's like they have never seen Star Wars.
Yeah.
They talk about it and I'm like, have you watched the movies?
Like, where is your headcanon leaning to have you upset at some of these events? Because also, Mando has always had cameos. They've always had cameos, dating back to the first season. Taika Waititi, he made a cameo.
Yeah.
Bill Burr, he made a cameo.
Yeah.
I mean, he ended up playing a bigger role. The guy who's Mando, that black guy, he's a big star. His name is slipping me right now, but I believe he played Creed.
Apollo.
I can't remember what his name. That's gonna slip on. But they've always had cameos. Y'all are showing your anti-blackness and fat phobia right now, to be quite honest, because that's what it really is. Y'all, you weren't angry that Jack Black showed up in that same episode. You're mad that Lizzo is in there because you think they're pushing wokeism. And if you think Star Wars is pushing wokeism, you have not been paying attention to Star Wars, because that's what it's always been about.
I just every time Star Wars fans talk and they're upset about something, I just always come away with the impression that they've never once actually interacted with a single Star Wars project,
or they've never understood
sincerely. Because I just don't understand. I'm like,
weird.
It's always been corny and cheesy. That's literally its thing. That is that's what made Andor stand out, because it didn't have that.
Right.
Like, literally, that's always been like its shtick, which for me has always been kind of why I'm like, hey man, I just don't take it as seriously. Like,
speaking
whatever
of Andor,
happens.
With Mon Mothma being in the Ahsoka series gets me so freaking pumped.
Yes, I saw her, and then I was like, what is the timeline of this show, Ahsoka?
So, Ahsoka is the same area with Mando a few years after the events of the original.
But that senator is still there.
Yes, because Andor happens just a few years before the originals. So there's people that would still be alive in Andor.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. The timeline makes sense.
Yeah, the timeline, it's just the way that the Star Wars timeline has come out. It's just really, I always have to think about it for a long time.
I love her as a character.
Yeah, she's really good. She's really great.
Absolutely loved her in Andor. Every scene that she was in, I was like, yeah, I love Cassian. I love all the other characters, but the political intrigue that she was a part of, I thought was one of the better parts of Star Wars that I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I thought she was. I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
So we've got some time left. Going your Love is Blind rant.
Okay, come hither, all my Love is Blind fans. come. We need to have a conversation, okay?
Talk to us.
Okay, listen, love is blind. Always love it. I will say every single season, this show proves that love actually has 20/20 eyesight. Love is not even a little bit blind. Love is not even a little bit blind. It can see so well. Okay, but there's a particular couple that there's been a lot of conversation about. Their names are Jackie and Marshall. Okay. And basically what it is just like, Jackie, whatever, like, Marshall's like this really like adoring guy. Like they come out the pods, whatever. He was never confused. Like he always was like 100% 10 toes down for Jackie. Come out the pods and he's like really like loving on her. Like he makes breakfast for her. Like she has like a lot going on in her life at the time of the show. And so she's kind of like emotionally unstable. Like she'd be having these breakdowns and shit. That's like kind of like for me personally, I'd be watching like, girl, knowing now that I know what was going on in her life at the time, I'm like, I kind of understand more. But also I'm like, why did you go on the show at this time of your life?
Yeah.
But he's like very good about like being, very present for her. Like he like calms her down. He's like very understanding. He's never impatient with her when she's going through something emotionally, whatever, right? So Jackie's been getting a lot of heat because Jackie told Marshall that she thinks that he is not man enough, that she wants him to be more aggressive because he's not. He's like, and it's worth noting he's black too. And Jackie is, I don't know what she is. She's giving like mixed with like lots of things. Like she gives like Latina, but she could be, I don't know. There's a lot going on.
Ambiguous.
Yes. Basically. But she was like, I want you to be like more aggressive, like specifically like in the bedroom. Like I guess she feels like he's not like, I don't know.
Assertive enough?
Yes. To which she was very hurt. Like, understandably, he was very hurt by this, right? And so she's been getting a lot of heat because they feel like it's like, girl, you're fumbling this bag. Like, this is like a really good man who's like very caring. He's very supportive of you. And like, you're going after something like, basically it's giving like she wants something a bit more toxic. Like, it's like he's too healthy for her, right? And so the dynamics are very weird because he clocks this. Like, he knows, okay, she is somebody that is self-sabotaging a good thing because she has never had it before. And she says that too, that she's never experienced love like the way that he's given it to her. And so he is like, she's self-sabotaging this. And this is where it gets weird on his part, want to help her. Like, I want to help her see what is good for her, basically. Okay. And then the dynamics get really weird because then it's like, yes, everybody loves Marshall. He's very loving. He's blah, 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 blah. But also he has a crazy savior complex and he's going into this thing trying to like fix her. And that's why he's not like stepping out when she clearly does not reciprocate what he's giving, because he's like, oh, I feel like I can help her see. I can help teach her like what love really is supposed to be like, blah, 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 blah. And it gets weird and like paternal at times where he is like fathering her. Like he's like, it's like very weird. And this is the part that this is why I need to talk to the Love is Blind fans, because we're not talking about this honestly. Yes, Jackie isn't being unhealthy. And yes, she is looking for something that is not good for her. This is true. But I don't think Marshall is as good for her as people are saying that he is. There's like this little moment I was just watching last night. They go out with like all the other couples, right? Jackie shows up. She's got on like this dress. It's like spaghetti straps, whatever. Okay. Marshall's like, yo, it's cold. Like, take my jacket. And Jackie's like, no, I don't want your jacket. Like, it's going to mess up my outfit. And Marshall's like, no, it's cold. Like, wear the coat. And she's like, I'm good. Like, I don't want it. Like, it's going to mess up my fit. He takes the jacket off, puts it on her shoulder, says, wear it. And she just, and it's like, you can see on her face, she does not want to wear the coat, but she gives up. Like, she stops like saying anything because she's just like, I mean, whatever, I guess. Is that not giving father? Is that not giving dad?
This is kind of cringe.
Right? So, okay, I know. But anyways, love Marshall. I think he's a good person, but I just think that we're not being honest about the dynamics that are at play there. I just had to say it. Okay.
Yikes. How many episodes are left?
I think they have released them all.
Got it.
And I have not seen them all.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I forget it's Netflix, so they binge it. Any final rants with Love is Blind?
I mean, of course, there's always more. But anyways, Tiffany, I love you. Black love is beautiful.
You want to close this out?
Yes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of, I was about to say Love is Blind. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast. This episode was produced by Adrian Battle Marston.
Here we go with the NPR nonsense.
Because I'm claiming that soon we're gonna have like a team, like we're gonna have like real like things to say. This episode was sponsored by, you know.
Oh, you're kind of getting to the rhythm.
All right.
We're done.
Yeah.
Peace out, y'all.
Bye.
See ya.